My name is David Zill. I was born in Arcadia, Wisconsin in 1955, January 6th. I was born in a small Catholic hospital. My mom was a single mom. I remember seeing the bill for my birth, which amounted to $36. So I was relatively cheap. I was a big baby. I think I was an 11-pound baby, so I was huge. People saying, "Oh my God, look at that one," and that was me, monster baby in the ward. I was the first child. My brother Jimbo, James George, but who prefers to go by Jimbo, was born a couple of years later. My birth father was not in the picture. I'm told that he had seen me before he died. He died in '59, so I was just a few years old, really, when he passed away from cancer. My mother married when I was 5 or 6 years old and had another boy, my brother Tony. My earliest years, I remember living with my grandparents. My mother had a bedroom in the back. My brother and I had bunk beds in the dining room. It was tight. It was, and everybody, in my family was poor. After my mother got married, we moved into a small house in the country. It was wonderful there. It really was. It was a little dinky house, but we were right alongside of a creek. My parents let us boys go about and do whatever we wanted, during the day. As long as we were home by lunch, and then by the time the street lights came on, we were inside. The creek was really kind of a real fundamental part of growing up. We could ice skate on it in the wintertime. Fishing wasn't very good on that creek. There's mostly suckers and little chubs. But we could catch crayfish, put them in a big tub. That was always a lot of fun. And wade, build dams, laying on that tall grass and looking up at the sky and just dreaming. I was quite a dreamer when I was a young man, dreaming about what could be. We saw the Beatles on TV, my brother and I, and we just thought this was great. And I cut out an electric guitar out of a board using a jigsaw and put on fishing lines for strings on nails. It wasn't anything that you could really tune or really play, but you could pretend. My brother and I decided one day to tear down the old chicken coop and build a stage in our yard, and that's what we did. We were trying to steal boards from the chicken coop and not have it be noticed, but we stole too many and it fell down. We had no chickens. It was just an old coop. But we built a stage, played our fake guitars, charged the kids in the neighborhood a nickel to come and watch us, and quite a memory. And my brother and I were real close growing up, so we did everything together. From a very early age, I was always attracted to music. I mean, I think for my 4th birthday, I got a record player. I used to listen to my auntie's records, my great aunt. She had like Andrew Sisters and Perry Como. And when I got to St. Stan's grade school, in the 2nd grade, I don't remember if I asked my mother, or my mother kind of encouraged me to, but I started taking piano lessons. I always had to go to the convent after school for those piano lessons, and boys were just so mean back then. So I never wanted to be seen going from the school to the convent, so I always had to kind of sneak a little bit. At some point early, I'd picked up a guitar and played around with it and banged on it a little bit, but never really learned how to do it until I made a friend with somebody in grade school who worked with me on guitars, and we learned together. Then I'd come home and teach what I learned to my brother so we could play together. Was in bands that played at high school dances and junior high dances. The story of my life is that I was always doing something. It seemed like I was entertaining and not participating sometimes. I kind of like that. I always joke with my wife that I joined a band so I wouldn't have to dance. She hates that, but I'd much rather do that. I just always felt more normal with a guitar in my hands. It's like right now, I don't know what to do with my hands. Can I go grab a guitar? I don't know. I have such fond memories of my grandparents, Norman and Agnes. She was a card shark. and she taught me card tricks. As a kid, I could do card tricks and amaze my friends. But she taught me all these card games, so probably so she could have somebody to play cards with, because she loved cards. My grandfather, just a fine, fine man, worked hard. He was a hard worker. He was a mechanic at a factory. He would sit on the porch with his radio and listen to Minnesota Twins games. I'd go out and sit with him on the porch and listen to the ball games with him and try to learn, because we played baseball in the schoolyard, but he had a better understanding of the game. Every Saturday morning, we'd go to Jack's Standard Station on Broadway and Mankato Avenue and fill the gas tank. Jack would give the kids a bunch of candy. And from Jack's, now this we're talking about, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Then from there, we'd go out to the Black Horse Saloon. We'd play the jukebox, and they had a few vending machines, like slide bowling and things like that, and hang out and just run around. And while Grandpa had a couple of cocktails, and then we'd head back home. But it was every Saturday. It was just like clockwork. His friend who owned the tavern got in some trouble and lost his liquor license. So Grandpa had the liquor license in his name. So I think Grandpa was allowed to go there and have some beers and highballs without having to pay for them. My parents were going to go buy me a guitar, and they bought me a Tisco Del Rey semi-hollow body guitar. And I don't know, it was probably a $30, $40 guitar, and got that for Christmas, which was cool. I liked it. I was walking down 3rd Street, passing the pawn shop, and I noticed in the window front was this Gibson Les Paul guitar. That was like a great guitar, and I knew that. So I took my my Christmas gift and swapped that even up for that Gibson. Later, I had to admit to my parents what I had done, because, they kind of figured out it wasn't the guitar I got for Christmas. And they were so upset with me because I took that brand new guitar and traded it for this old piece of junk. This sister, and she was a relatively old nun, helped me rewire the thing so it would actually work. And I was amazed. I was amazed by that. And I thought, hey, physics must be good, because you learn a little bit about electronics too. And then once I kind of got it rewired to where it worked well again, it was my guitar for a long time. I've told this story to guitar players that they just like, I can't believe somebody traded you a 1956 gold top Les Paul for a Tisco Del Rey guitar. And my parents couldn't believe it either, but it was kind of the other way around. My parents were thinking, man, you got took. They took you. I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, and we had a little teeny house in Copperas Cove, Texas, which was about 20 miles off the post. On the day Amy was born, I was sick. I was very sick. So I hatched this scheme. I said, Kathy, call my unit, give me 10, 15 minutes after I leave here, call the unit, tell them you're in labor, and they'll let me know, and I'll come home, and it'll be a false alarm, and I'll come back tomorrow when I'm feeling better. And out comes the company clerk, waving. He said, you gotta go, Zill, you gotta go. Your wife's having a baby. Really? Oh, okay. And I get in my car, and I'm going, ha, 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 ha. And I'm driving back the 20 minutes it takes to get to the house. I get to the house, my wife's in labor, really, real labor, It's like, oh my God, we got to go to the hospital. So she says, I have to iron a shirt first. Okay. This seems so silly now thinking about this. She irons a shirt. We get in the car, and I drive back to the post that I just left, and I'm still not feeling really all that well. First child? Yes. Oh, it's going to be a while. I'm thinking, okay. So I'm thinking, I'm going to go to the cafeteria, get a cup of coffee. I come back, congratulations, you have a daughter. It's like, it happened that quickly. Junior came along back after I was out of the Army, and I was back in Winona. He was a big baby too. Probably not as big as me, but he was still like 9 pounds or so, so it was pretty good size. I think I went out and bought some cigars, because that's what you do, and handed out cigars after he was born. But no great stories like Amy's. It was good. It was a standard traditional birth with no deception. The kids were involved in sports, back then. It wasn't like it is today, but t-ball was big. Amy was involved in Girl Scouts. So she was a brownie first, and then I remember she was so proud when she walked across. We had an actual bridge that you walked across at Farmers Community Park to cross over from being a brownie to a Girl Scout. And I remember her walking with her head up and thinking how cool that was. I think I've got some pictures of that someplace. Then I got, kind of a variety of jobs into different labor and sales and things. I was a Culligan man. I spent my day carrying heavy things into people's basements, whether it be bags of salt or exchange tanks. I went to work from Culligan to something called Midland Cooperative. And I was a tire man. I was the farm tire service guy. That's a job I really did like. It was hard work changing tractor tires, semi-truck tires. I carried a fishing rod with me because there were trout streams everywhere in Lewiston, Minnesota, where I had this job. And, if I happened to be going past a trout stream, I could stop in and see if they were biting. I remember that first Christmas. I had no money for gifts and no credit, no nothing. And so I gave the kids candy canes filled with M&Ms. They're like a plastic candy cane. They're filled with M&Ms. I wrapped them. It's like, this is all I can frickin' afford. Meanwhile, December, the company had a Christmas party. And everybody was talking about these bonus checks. Well, you're going to get like $800. It's like, I'm not going to get $800 because I've only been here for 3 months. But still, I got a check for like $400 and on that Christmas. And I went and bought some real Christmas gifts for the kids. Every year, till this year, because David's taken this over, I got the kids those candy canes. And kind of a reminder of where I was and what happened. And now David told me this year, otherwise, because I've still been buying them, he said, I got candy canes for everybody this year, so you don't have to do it. And it's like, what a great tradition. Someone who turned out to be my best friend for life is Dan Schweitzer. I was playing with another band, kind of a pop band, and Dan talked me into quitting that band and joining him. Some weekends we'd go to Madison, Wisconsin and La Crosse, Wisconsin, where people love blues, and play blues music all night long. We were playing at the Wisconsin Dells, and a big resort town. Was an A&R guy for a record company and wanted to hire Dan. And Dan was all big-headed and talking about, well, I'm going to have probably get better musicians. And I basically said, F you, and hit the road with another band. And so I joined this band out of Missouri called the Boot Heel Express. We would do Randy Travis, Keith Whitley, followed by ZZ Top, Bruce Springsteen, playing these big, huge dance halls in the western states for the most part, Albuquerque, Cheyenne, Wyoming. And just so happened, Dan was back in Rochester, Minnesota, playing with his band, with my old band, with the new guitar player. So I went out to see them play. And I'm sitting with a few people and watching them and going, my God, this guy plays, I play that. Later, Terry, the bass player, came down and was talking to me, and I said, this guy plays a lot like I do. How'd you find him? He said, well, Dan got him off a musician's referral and gave him all the tapes that we had, and he said, learn the parts just like this guy. So he's playing, he learned me note for note. At about 2 in the morning, Dan calls me, and he's had a few drinks. I probably had a few drinks. And starts saying, we should have never split up. And we're both blubbering like idiots to each other at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, probably had some other substances in ourselves. And he asked me back, and I said, yeah. So I did another stint with the Risky Business Band. I wanted to try college. I was not a good high school student because I had no discipline, but now I was a little bit more disciplined, and I loved math, and got a degree in mathematics and computer science from Winona State University. And that's when I started teaching. That was my first job. We had a computer science department of one teacher, and when he had a nervous breakdown, they needed somebody to take over all of his classes. I did. I wrote a grant, co-wrote a grant with somebody, got money to put this program together based on mid-range computing. That was really a big accomplishment to get that done, get the program built in a year, have it off the ground, get 1 year under my belt, do 100% placement of the students who enrolled in this. I went to the dean and said, you know, it's time for you to offer me tenure. I'm leading this program, and you don't know that I'll be back next fall to teach. And she said these words to me, and she said, oh, David, you and I both know you'll be back. And it kind of irritated me. And it was then I said, I'm gonna apply to Mayo Clinic. I'm thinking to myself, I said, they're gonna have to pay me this amount of money, or I'm not gonna leave teaching. And I got there, and they made me the job offer, and it was way more than I was making teaching, and way more than I expected. And I couldn't choke out a yes fast enough. The college calls me back after they found out that I took another job, and they said, hey, we can offer you tenure, and we can offer you this. And I said, no, thank you. One of the things that I got while I was teaching was this student named Diane Carlson, who enrolled in one of my algebra classes. I get this irate woman in my office telling me how she stood in line waiting to sign up for my next class, only to get there and find out that me and another instructor had switched. Just furious with me. And I said, hey, listen, you know, if you need any extra help, feel free to come by. I'll work with you. I said, but Mr. Peens is a really good teacher, and you know, you could learn a lot from him too. So she did come by and ask for some help, and we did go out for coffee, and we were both going through divorce at the same time, and ended up seeing each other and forming a relationship that's lasted many years. At the end of 2025, I can't picture my life without her. But it was just serendipitous how you come together and you meet, and then it would become such a huge deal. You just didn't know that at the time. Who's better at algebra? I gave her a B. She reminds people of that. And I said, B is good. B is above average. I really didn't know love when I was a young man. I felt my grandmother's love. My relationship with my mother was always a little iffy, and we were not touchy, huggy, feeling people. We were a fairly stern family. I watched my folks have a terrible relationship and through osmosis learned that, that's what it's like. That's what's normal. After I met Diane, is when I really learned how to love a wife and how to care for a wife. Mostly because she'd let me know. and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Amy took me for algebra as well. Me and Amy agreed during our stay that she would not tell people that I was her dad. She wanted to be a normal student. So one day, Amy comes to class and she's sitting out in the hall on the bench in labor. My grandson Blake was about to be born. Amy, do you need me to take you to the hospital? No, Rick is coming, Blake's dad. Rick's coming, he'll be here any minute. And I was like, okay. So I sat out there and kept her company till Rick came. Meanwhile, around the school, nobody knows this is my daughter, but they know what a guy this math teacher. Look, you wouldn't believe the care and comfort he gave to this girl in our class who was having a baby. So I get this great reputation as someone who was so caring and so thoughtful. It's like, why did you even come to class that day? We had a test. And I brought her the test in the hospital so she could take it and stay current with the class. We have a blended family with Diane's children and my children. We've maintained good relationships with both sides of the family. My kids, love Diane, and her kids, they've come to like me over the years, and enough to let me in a birthing room that's pretty amazing. Rachel thought enough of me to allow me into Henry's birth, but it was a difficult birth, so they ended up taking her, Rachel, into the birthing room, and I didn't get to see the actual birth. But she allowed me again when Esther was born, and I saw this miracle. It was jaw-dropping miracle. It was a very important experience in my life that stayed with me, and I can still get over emotional about that today, just like I was back there. I would recommend it highly for anyone else if you ever have that opportunity. I'm not a religious person. I tried that for a while, but it's just, sometimes you try things on just to see how it fits. And sometimes it doesn't fit, and you give it time and it fits, and I gave this time and it just didn't fit. I don't put down religious people, but I'm not one of them. I don't know if there's anything out there. For me, it doesn't matter. I guess I'm content where I am right now in my life, the people around me. Spirituality can come in a lot of different forms, I guess. I've learned that, my gatherings over the holidays, I feel this warmth that I can't explain, this love, and, that's as much of a religious experience as that I need. In 1998, when I started there, and we didn't have an electronic medical record, we had paper records, and these nurses would go through the charts, abstract data, put it in laptops. Then they would get back to our offices and look at their laptop and type things into a mainframe computer. Back and forth, back and forth. Why don't you just have this computer talk to this computer? Well, that'd be pretty hard. I'm like, no, it wouldn't. So, so what I ended up doing was writing an interface, and they'd have to. I saved hours for these people just because I figured out a way to make the laptop talk to the mainframe. Not only within one system, systems could talk, but systems could talk nationally. I got to go to Boston and speak, and I got to go to Washington, D.C. and meet with people. And I wrote something called a chronic disease registry, an application that allowed better disease management. Pretty soon we were on the road doing dog and pony shows for a lot of other health institutes, and how we were managing disease. That one got written up in a medical journal, in fact, and I was a co-author on that journal article. I rose through the ranks there and had a good time and a good career at Mayo Clinic. The people I worked with were the greatest people in the world, absolutely the most wonderful people in the world. I have relationships with them to this day. Well, a lot of the people who worked for me were also students of mine back when I taught school. But now I was getting to the end of my career and I was winding down. I knew I had, 4 or 5 years I was going to work yet. So I moved back into research. Oh, if you remember Watson, the computer that played Jeopardy. So the thing about IBM Watson was that it could read text and could discern information. If you could put a reminder up in the doctor's screen that says, hey, this person may be eligible for this breast cancer trial because of this and this. Ask them these questions. That's what we could get Watson to do. Watson, the night before, would go through all the appointments that were scheduled for the next day, read them, and discern who might be eligible for a clinical trial. That was a big win. That was a huge win for us, and that was probably the last big project I was involved with. I got to do some groundbreaking crap there for all of my career. They let me run with things, which was great. Meanwhile, what was happening in my life was I had lost 2 of my very best friends, both to cancer, by the way. Randy was my best friend since 2nd grade in school, and we maintained a relationship lifelong. And then my friend Larry, who was a bass player in a band called American Flyer, best man at my wedding. At that point, I started to reflect on how long Dave, do you really want to work? Do you want to work till you die? So, a year before I retired, Diane and I bought this motorhome. It was an older motorhome in the 90s. We said, let's try this. Let's see if we like traveling in a motorhome. And we loaded up our 3 little dogs and hit the road. We came to look at a piece of property in Tucson, which happens to be right across the road from where I live today. And we looked at it and thought, oh, this is terrible. This is just, what a mess. I called, Frank was his name, and asked about this piece of property that I'm on today. There was a septic tank here, brand new, never been used, but put in the 80s sometime, I guess. There was water already plumbed to this property, and there was an electric box here. I didn't see that when I first looked at it because it was so overgrown with trees and weeds and everything else. I couldn't even find the utilities. And oh, by the way, when I was looking at it, they told me, watch for snakes because there's a lot of snakes on that property. Scared shitless of snakes at the time. Anyway, we bought it, moved the motorhome on it, lived in that motorhome for a few years until we decided we wanted something more permanent. It's a very spiritual place for Diane and I because we've taken this bare piece of land and turned it into something, I think, very beautiful and kind of a natural habitat for the animals. We love the critters that come in here, the javelina, the coyotes, everything. There's a lot of love put into this land and where we are today. Losing friends like Larry and Randy, I had a little time to say goodbye to them. And Patty was just like, no time at all. Coming here to Arizona and getting in this band with Patty and the Jukebox Junkies, you build the band friendships. Band friendships are kind of like a marriage, but there was also something about Patty that was different, and she bonded real quickly to both me and to Diane. So, you know, we're doing things together, or she's coming over here and picking up Diane and they're going shopping. And so it got to be a real close relationship. And when she asked me to join the band, she said, I'd appreciate if you just took over the music end of it, you know, worked on the arrangements, worked, you know, helped chart out the songs and the things that she just wasn't comfortable doing. I thought, this is great. This is what I want to do. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. It just isn't. Things can happen really quickly, whether it be a sepsis that took Patty or a car accident that takes somebody just like that. As you get older and you start to watch your friends disappear, it changes your whole outlook on life in a good way. In a good way. You're sorry for the loss, but it reminds me that I really need to live today to its fullest. It is just not just another day. It is another day. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I wonder, you know, I don't know that I'd like to know when I'm going to go. I guess I don't really want to know. You know, it could be this afternoon. Could be, you know, 10 years from now. Who knows? I just don't know. And I don't really want to know. When my grandfather died, he was 76, I think. He was kind of an old guy that couldn't do a whole lot. His body was broken down, and he couldn't go fishing anymore, which was his big love. I'm going to be 71 in a week. And I'm working with the band, I'm working out on the land, I'm doing all these things, and, you know, I'm had 2 knee replacements, 2 foot rebuilds, just so I can keep doing these things. I guess I want my kids and grandkids to look back and say, that guy did what he had to do to live the best life he could. And not only that, I hope they look at me and say, well, we did so much more than he did. My kids are better parents than I was. So I'm encouraged. I hope they're happy. I hope they have success. I hope for all my future generations that they just grasp life and enjoy it. And it doesn't take them forever to learn how to do that. That's the trick. Learn to love, learn it fast. Don't be selfish. You can't love and be a selfish person at the same time. You just can't. You know, while she might not think so, Diane, I really, really try to make her happy. I really try. And that's good. She deserves it. I attribute a lot of the success in my life to her. She's really made me look at a lot of different things, a lot of the aspects of my life, and challenged me. And that's good. At the time, maybe I didn't care for it. My first reaction is to get defensive and put up the wall and say, stop, that's not right. But then, you know, I'm not one that holds on to that. I never was one to hold on for long, because my mind will just keep playing that over and thinking, perhaps that person's right. Consider the possibility that you're wrong, which was very difficult for me. But I think I got it now. Here I am. It only took me 70 years or so to figure out how to be happy. That's all I got.